I feel like talking about this because I just realised it. Because I think about how I'd respond to people who object to well, basically a lot of things I say, maybe even do. It depends what it is, really. Um, I was thinking about something like the Palestinian protests and Palestinian protests. Wait, yeah, technically. Basically asking for peace, asking Israel to obviously stop the genocide. That's something they're doing. As in the protesters, I mean, they're trying to stop genocide. But anyway, I wonder what people would say to me knowing that I obviously am against genocide as well. And I think people might say something, oh, you're one of them, are you? You just these fucking watermelons or something. And it's like, yeah. Like, what can you tell me that proves it wrong? I guarantee you nobody would answer that. And instead just resort to insults and probably injury. Like, let's be honest, there's probably a part of them that wants to injure me in that place. Or in place of that, rather. And I think it's sort of like a dangerous tell when obviously people are like that when they want like death and destruction for asking for something as simple and as well as nice, because it is nice in the long term. There's lots to do after it, but peace is a nice thing. Something that you really take comfort in, and even the moments of peace I get in real life are just comfortable. But I guess I need to talk about where I'm coming from with this, which is where I use my privilege, and it is sort of a privilege, I guess, but it's also a downside, but it is mainly a privilege of being stuck at home and not using it to do bad things or evil. And I think that comes from me having an epiphany years ago when I originally got into trouble with something, and I realised that my life is like completely fucked because I'm just fucked in the head. I realised I needed to change my ways because otherwise people would view me in a different way, and essentially I opened myself up for being criticised and being, well, maybe lynched. I don't know. Depends how people interpret it, really. But the realisation made me think about the most truthful things, as in what my ex-fiance said at the time, and basically how I would try to make things better for not just myself but the world in general. And in that thought, it led me to a lot of realizations. I was even trying to talk to God as well, trying to be more spiritual. Because I was thinking maybe there's a way through this with God, because obviously I've known people who've used religion to escape these harsh realities and problems that they have. But I realised soon enough that I wasn't getting many responses, or any at all. I say many responses because the only ones I had were more like a correlation, as in, I would ask for my breathing to be fixed, and it'd be fixed, but it doesn't always work, so it's quite inconsistent. But in that time, I realised you don't need religion to be moral, and that was like such a huge realisation for me, even before I got into the atheist community sort of stuff. Because I was even thinking about things like trans people, which obviously I debunked myself on eventually, thanks to someone who I apparently was watching for years who was trans, and I didn't even know. She posed so well as a trans woman that I was just shocked. I was like, okay, how can someone so sweet and innocent be this nice and sound so feminine? It's like, genuinely didn't make sense to me. It's genuinely someone I had a crush on as well for a while when I was back in school. So she's a bit older than me, but that's a different thing. But yeah, genuinely, that was a very big realisation. It got me into critical thinking, made me realise how many of these other things I could be wrong about. And it turns out I was wrong about quite a few different things. Obviously homophobia sort of was a bit like that. I was a bit sort of against like immigration and foreigners taking jobs and stuff. Eventually changed my mind on that. And I think I also just got thinking about how to determine what the truth is, and it's really developed over the years, but I've realised that demonstrable evidence is probably the way to go. Admittedly, the atheist community sort of helped me realise that because of God. Because how do you refute God? Well, in the actual reality, you can't, because it is mainly a belief, and even though it's very much something that's made up, you also have to take it with a grain of salt, because there could be a God. You never fucking know. So that led me to this route of how do you actually determine whether something's real or not? Because if there is actually a God, how do you determine whether something's real? And then that came with the realisation you have to demonstrate it. I remember Matt Dillahunty, I think it was, the atheist experience guy, was consistently bringing up demonstrable evidence, and I was thinking about it a lot. Like using this as a response to God, and he's actually right. You can't demonstrably prove God. Which is why we have to sort of err on the side. Admittedly, it's a different belief. I believe that we should just be agnostic. But no doubt, someone like Matt, and probably, I know Aaron Roy used to be quite anti-theist, which is, it's not a good belief to have now. Not sure if he still believes that, but, it's a bit of a dangerous belief to have as well, because it creates divide and it causes problems. And demonstrable evidence really was a realisation, and that made me think, what other areas can this be applied to? Because if we really can't prove a God, then are there other things we can't really prove? And it turns out there are things we can't really prove. For example, we can't even prove homosexuality is unnatural. We can't prove that even like something like gender dysphoria is unnatural or even just, harmful. I mean harmful as in like the transitioning process for addressing it. We can't disprove a lot of things, and it made me realise a lot of these beliefs we have tend to be based around either what we hear from family or friend groups, just other people. And also I guess like my loneliness takes into account this, but when I obviously have been lonely, I think the most important thing as well I've realised is I have to treat people nicely. That's the one thing I've done for my dad with enough, even though my upbringing wasn't perfect. It definitely had some traumatising moments. But sort of taught about kindness and peace, except for obviously the homophobia and transphobia. And I sort of understand it. I understand that side of religion, because it's like you need to find a way to not only just not sin, I mean avoid sinning. You need to find a way to be nice to each other and be kind. And that's like one of the best parts of religion you can actually get from it. Literally. So I was thinking, how does an atheist do this anyway without being tied to a belief of God? And the realisation is that you do need to be kind to people and understand that they are human beings first and foremost, and living beings for that matter when it comes to animals. So you understand that you're in this world together and you have a finite amount of time, and to cut it short is to just create injustice. Now, no matter what it is, whether it's a child dying from cancer, your grandmother or grandfather dying suddenly, or whatever, it's such an injustice, and that's why we need to make the most of the life we have without treading over others to get there. I reckon in indigenous communities, I haven't researched it properly, I know that they tend to be rather happier than a lot of other people, but in indigenous communities there can be some very enlightening moments, even with death. And it can really show sometimes, and there are things to learn from that. Admittedly, there's obviously still problems in them, you never know, it could be really evil shit going on. And I know that hunting itself is somewhat evil, but it depends on obviously how you do it. Because obviously they can't really grow farmland, so they have to hunt to survive. But That's another situation entirely. Again, look at the truth of things, it's like the best thing they can do for that situation, so it's also mostly correct in that case. But yeah, like being at peace with life itself is really important. And that's why I've also realised things like greed tend to corrupt you, because even like, not even about 7 or 8 years ago, when this all started, when I started realising these things, yeah, I was going through my toxic phase in gaming, competitive gaming. I was also thinking about what I'd do if I came into terms on money. And that also made me realise I need to be wiser and better with these things. And so I started taking that into account and being, again, smarter and wiser with it. So I realised that in order to be a nicer person, which also was kind of the goal there, I needed to be careful with what I do and what I say. And that's why that happens. That's why I became like this. That's why I decided to be peaceful and try to be passive with things. And especially being alone at home where I'm surrounded by algorithms and AI and internet, it's also about trying not to corrupt myself, trying not to be an arsehole wherever I can. So within the bounds of mental health, which can absolutely strain me and strangle me rather. But yeah, I can really only do as much as I can being confined to home because that's all I can do. But the most important thing is I just don't want to misuse it to essentially be this arsehole, be this incel, for example. I don't want to be like that because I know there's dangers around it. I know that there's points about it that can really fuck you up and really change your mind on things in a really negative light. So you do need to be careful about it. And I took those careful steps, and what do you know? It does kind of pay off, which is very interesting. I do think that things are improving overall with this kind of thing. Um, it does have an impact. It makes the world a difference too, as well. You sort of be able to calm my mind. You be wiser in the choices you make in life. You know, when you, I don't know, whether you go like shopping or something, or write an opinion online, you have to try and put at the forefront of your mind that you can't be someone who's constantly propping up violence and deeming someone as not human. I think that's a very telltale sign that someone hasn't essentially been at peace. And one of the most brutal things I've even realised in even this case, but I realise not everyone will accept peace for what it is and will actually try to attack you for it, which is just inherently wrong. And I realise in order to fight back, you need to be not stronger but smarter. So if you can somehow diffuse them with words, by all means, like that's a good way to do it. But if words don't work, then also you have to let your body do the talking instead. So you have to disarm them, you have to learn self-defense, you have to unfortunately use a weapon. And that's basically a lot of the things that need to happen today, which is really, really frustrating and sad. That's the only way you can get peace now. I know 7 or 8 years ago we didn't have to really worry about that. So it is a constant worry. It's a situation we're forced into rather than the situation we want. And yeah, I feel like this is one of the most important topics I've ever discussed. Just because of that. Even though I get carried away with my autism and emotions, again, in the background there is a part of me that just wants peace. Also not violence and hate speech or anything. It's just peace I want in the end, and that's apparently too much to ask for some. But anyway, I feel like sharing this because I do sometimes wonder how do you end up as this like sort of armchair activist or critic, whoever you are, and not end up in Arsenal. How do you do it and stay sane with the amount of insanity in your life and your mind? And that's how you ground your beliefs to these ideals. Again, peace and, well, love, that's the other thing. Don't know how I forgot to mention that, but I think love is another important aspect. And it's not like love as in like, oh, I love you, family, I love you. Nah, it's more like love as in understanding that everyone's a human being. You know, everyone has a different way of expressing it, even if it's just like viewing a YouTube video by a really nice person or group. I do that with the Oscars because I do love the Oscars. They are not only entertaining, but they're also great people, for the most part anyway. But that's sort of how you express love, and also just seeing people as well. Even just talking to them a little bit. That's how you do it. Yeah, I don't really know what else to add there. But, yeah. God, I imagine music playing over this is probably, what was it called? I downloaded it? No, I didn't download it. No, it's Flawed Mango's Dramamine? Dramamine? I don't know. But I sort of imagine that music playing underneath this. Always stirs up some emotion, that track. Yeah, I will do a metal cover of it one day, but that's probably only if my situation changes. Again, it's trying to find the peace, and in my current situation, there isn't really any. It's chaotic, it's a mess, and I think the only way that I'm ever going to make this cover is probably if my situation changes, if I get a bathroom that's suited for me, a bathtub, proper toilet, even a proper sink, to be honest, because it keeps fucking sticking my oils all over it. It's just quite disgusting, and it needs cleaning like every fucking week, I swear. But yeah, what's the other thing? Yeah, the insects you get. Those are the two main things in my life that bother me the most. But I'd need to move if they can't do that because there's no other way for me to survive. Unless the government gives me like £100,000 grant or something, and I could buy the cheapest house you could probably find as long as it's soundproof and also not mouldy, like properly expectant stuff. Yeah, like, I don't know. But that's essentially how I've been the way I am. It's why I care. And I feel like sharing this as a standalone thing because it is important. I'm not actually going to put this into the podcast. I decided not to do that. I feel like that's a very important aspect. It's how you stay sane. I think it's information that people need to understand and know. And also, I forget this as well because I often don't see the benefits of it, but it's in the background. I think if you treat people nicely, you do get nice things in return. And that shouldn't be the motive for it. It should be just seeing that the world is peaceful and seeing that others are happy. Because that should be its own reward. But if people give you something back as a result, that's fine. If there's anything wrong with accepting that as long as you're not exploiting them. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to add here. Obviously, thanks for listening. Because I feel like this is a really important topic. So let's, I'll see you on another time.